If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
All right, listen up, Michael Rotundo and all you other stay-at-home sons, you professional gamers who are not being compensated for your professional gaming. We may have an outlet for you here if you want to get back in or enter. I mean, in some cases, we're not talking about get back to the workforce, we're talking about entering the workforce. This dovetails nicely on the discussion we were having about the war on work as dirty jobs, as Mike Rowe was describing it. Our next guest is Montez King. He's the executive director of the National Institute for Metalworking Skills, and he's also a member of President Trump's task force on apprenticeship expansion. Montez King, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be on your show today.
Well, we're happy to have you. And so, one of the things we were just talking about is it's sort of a seemingly contradictory thing to say when you've got historically low unemployment and we're talking about all of these unfilled positions in manufacturing, in the trades, and yet we have 62% labor participation rate. So there is, a delta there somewhere among some demographics. And I wonder what you would say in terms of the opportunities in metalworking generally, or metalworking specifically, and just apprenticeship programs in the trades generally.
Well, I like to say that when it comes to the work and learn model of apprenticeships, it is, it's made me impervious to the marketplace. There's economic downturns that happen every so often, maybe every 7 years or so. And I'm 45 years old now. I've seen, the market go up and down, and with my skills in the machining trades, I'm impervious to it. I'm always working, and I grew up in a poverty-stricken neighborhood. It's underserved. It's easy to fall into the wrong track, and working in this, being introduced to the trade has just changed my life forever. So all of those kids that are, I call them falling under the Walking Dead syndrome. They're either they're looking at going to the traditional college track, or they're doing nothing at all. Just in 6 months, gaining a few skills, you can actually enter into a gateway position that can change your life forever.
Well, how did yeah, sorry for interrupting. How did you get into the trades?
Well, I was actually running the streets as a young kid in Baltimore City, and there were a few kids in the neighborhood that they seemed like the good kids. They said they wanted to go to a trade school that was all the way across town. It's about 30 miles. About 30 miles on the other side of town. And I just jumped on a bandwagon and said, you know what, let me give this a shot. Let me try it and see if I can apply for this trade school. But they were only accepting 90 people in business administration. That's where my mind was thinking. And this at the open house, there was this guy that was standing in a dark hallway. It was all the parents were at the business administration and the cosmetology, all those areas. And I just went down this dark hallway because I thought I saw something. And to be honest with you, this white guy just jumped out of the room and grabbed me by my shoulders and started shaking me and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a few good black guys for this trade." I'm like, what the heck is going on, right?
Oh, that's a great story.
Yeah, he scared me more than anything. And he introduced me to the trade, and he's been my mentor ever since. And I've never worked in a McDonald's or Burger King. It's always been in the trade.
Well, I just wanted to underscore something you said and maybe have you provide some more specifics to it, because I hear this from owner-operators of manufacturing businesses in the Chicago metropolitan area too. It's like, look, man, we'll train somebody who comes to the table and says, I'll be here at the required time and I'll work my butt off to the required end of the day. And all I need is to be trained and to learn. And these guys are willing to take that raw material, that person that doesn't come to the table with skills in a particular trade, and train them because they're so desperate for reliable talent in this space.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that was my other point, is that if you can walk in with zero skills because there's such a need, there's such a skills gap in which we're looking for bodies. I mean, basically, the way you look for employment and these trade skills, which are very technical, is you put a mirror under their nose and make sure they're breathing. You're trying to find that right person. But, you can change your life significantly in a small period of time, and then you can do it in chunks. You can stack onto your career and just keep learning additional skills. And these employers, they're out here, they're ready to go. And one of my big customers, we were just going over the statistical numbers for salaries, and their average pay for their technical skills jobs is $107,000.
Yeah, I know.
Wait, how much?
It's $107,000. Amy wants to go into one of these apprentice programs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, and also too. I mean, the apprentice program, is basically like a probationary period in any other job, in a white collar job or something like that. But I mean, 6 months, or an internship, right? 6 months, and oftentimes you're getting help in terms of getting some pay to get through the apprenticeship program until you can get on a full-time 40-hour work week.
Absolutely. And then, of course, I'm a part of the Presidential Task Force for Apprenticeship Expansion. And right now, apprenticeships only represent, as good as apprenticeships are, apprenticeships only represent 3/10 of our entire workforce. But if you go across the pond, it represents about 30%. It's 0.3% here in the U.S., and across the pond is about 30% of their entire workforce. And apprenticeships are such a great solution for that work and learn model because you're not building up debt in college. You're actually learning skills that you can actually employ on the job right now. And now with this new industry recognized apprenticeship program model that we're working on at the presidential level, there's more flexibility where we're even adding in pieces to recognize what companies are currently doing but not necessarily registered, as well as we're adding in pieces for articulation. So now you can get college credits for that work and learn apprenticeship model and still have that career pathway that parents want to see. I want my kids to earn a degree. Well, you can earn a degree. I mean, what's the average now for a bachelor's? Probably 6 years. If you're on a work and learn model, you can get practical experience and come out with a degree at the same time if you work hard.
So where do we sign up? I have two young boys, and I've noticed. I've just recently taken tours of different high schools. Lane Tech used to be technical, and they have a huge auto shop component to their curriculum, and that's all gone. And tool and die making, that's all gone too. So how do we get involved in the trades?
Well, and that's where I think the parents need to understand the truth. Most of us, I do a reality check with the parents, and I do this quite often to get them to realize what's happening. And I say, who are advocates of the trade? And you get many people that will raise their hand and say, I'm an advocate of the trade. And I say, keep your hands up. If you have children that are at a decision-making stage or know of someone who has children at a decision-making stage for their careers, and most of them keep their hands up. Now, I say, only keep your hands up if those kids are moving in the direction of the skilled trades. And those hands start to come down because people are saying, well, I want my kid to go to college. Well, and that doesn't mean we don't need kids going to the straight college track. But what it says is so many, 90% of our population, our young kids, are going towards the college track, yet less than 50% of the jobs require something more than a high school diploma, but less than a 4-year degree. So everyone's going for the same jobs, but then we have this large pot of jobs that can't be filled that actually pay, in many cases, more than those jobs with the 4-year degrees. So the parents need to see the truth. Yeah,
right. It's sort of the education bias to some extent. The task force on apprenticeship expansion. So what's the kind of quickest way you see to expand apprenticeship programs and knowledge of apprenticeship programs, exposure to them? Is it by integrating them into the curriculum of more high schools, or what's the play?
Yeah, the play here is that, one, we want to recognize what companies are doing well now. That's a huge issue where, you have the registered model. We have an apprenticeship model, the Apprenticeship Act of 1937. And but it has a box around it, and so there are many companies out there may not necessarily want to be registered, but they do have on-the-job training. And so we want to recognize what the companies are currently doing and not just say, well, you're not registered, so you're not a part of the system. We want to put it back in industry's hands where industry can recognize those programs that are truly recognized as apprenticeships. And then we want to bring the colleges together to start articulating into credits that work experience rather than saying, well, it's a part of an apprenticeship, so we won't articulate that into college credits. No, we want to change that culture where it is recognized. So recognize the thousands of companies out there that has OJT or on-the-job training. That's one piece. Articulating that into college credits, that's another piece. And showing the parents that the career pathway towards these jobs, within these jobs, are just as valuable and pay just as much, if not more, than that college track, but without the debt.
Yeah, and
because most the companies are paying for that training.
Yeah, right. We got a tweet from Jerry Stoklosa, local 73 sheet metal apprenticeship, which is here in Chicago area. Starting pay is $18-20 an hour, not too shabby. Yeah, not too shabby when you otherwise have people protesting in the streets for $15 an hour working at McDonald's or whatever. There are other pathways other than picking up a placard. Montez King, Executive Director of National Institute for Metalworking Skills. He's also a member of President Trump's Task Force for Apprenticeship Expansion. Montez, thanks so much for joining us and sharing your insights. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.